Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Retro Recall. I hope you're doing awesome. Today, we have another beautiful notebook PC or laptop, if you prefer, that I paid 20 Canadian dollars for. That's approximately 15 US dollars for anybody trying to do the math. And this particular system caught my eye because it's one of those systems that I had seen my dad using. And, this form factor was used in the late 90s, early 2000s, and this particular machine was manufactured in 2000. So as I noted, this machine, I had seen my father use that sort of style in his government type role. And as a result, I wanted to get something like this as well in the collection. So you know what? In today's video, we're going to go over this machine. We're going to see if it works, and we're going to see, is $20 worth it? What, did I waste my money? Or is this system worth putting into the collection? So we have lots to do. Let's get right to it. Okay, and we're back. And so in usual fashion, we'll go over the whole machine on the exterior and take a look at the interior as well. So on the very top of the machine, we have the Dell logo with Latitude CPx on the front, along with Dell Canada. So this was manufactured for Canada with a service tag, technical support phone number, and a Dell website. Now, normally, whenever I would get a machine such as this is something that I would be annoyed at if I saw the sticker right on the top bezel. But in this particular case, it is a business class machine and would have been used in a business environment or a, government type or a school environment, things like that, more of like a fleet sort of area. So naturally, they wouldn't really have cared. And they'd also have other stickers on here like asset tags and things like that. So this was kind of normal for back in the day. But for me, it would be something that I would not want on my machine. But overall, the condition of the machine is really, really good. And then we have the two hinges up top here with a couple of indicator LEDs, no doubt for power, battery charging, and for the hard disk activity. So just going to the front here for a moment, looks like we have a latch to be able to open up the screen from the main body of the laptop. On the left here, it looks like a battery kind of bay or modular bay here. And then we also have again, looks like a modular, but we'll have to find out in a moment, optical drive. And when I say modular, meaning that it can be removed and something else put in its place if required. Let's keep going and we'll take a look at that in a moment. Let's look at the side here. So it looks like we have a speaker here by the looks of things. Originally, I thought that might have been some ventilation, but upon looking inside there, it looks like to be a speaker. And then continuing on, we have 3 audio jacks. So we have a microphone, headphone, and it looks like an audio in jack, as well as an S video out as well, which is pretty cool to have, pretty handy to have. Not only would you have something on this for like VGA out, but having S video out as well is really handy. And then here it looks like we have some ventilation port. There's a bunch of dust in here, so I'd wager to say that that's for ventilation for the CPU as well. And then looks like we have little caps here, but no doubt probably for screws, to hide screws to hold together the screen. Continuing on here along the back. So we have an additional fan along the back here for, again, the additional ventilation. We have a VGA port, a parallel port. It looks like a docking station port, and this would be proprietary to Dell at the time. We have a USB port, which is very handy to have. And then, of course, we have our mouse/keyboard shared PS2 port, along with a communications port, so a serial port as well, which is very handy in business class machines. They obviously phase them out over the years and what have you, but again, handy to have. And then looks like we have power here as well. So we have our power adapter to go in here. So just want to say about the dock itself. Again, having a machine with a docking ability allowed several interfaces in that docking station to go through this one port. So it would render these kind of not usable because of the way this would cover this up. And then the docking station itself would allow you to connect external peripheral devices so that you would feel more like you're in a desktop environment, desktop type monitor, external keyboard, mouse, your network, any other devices, peripheral devices you'd have connected, all running through this port here. So really cool to have on the machine. Not too much going on here, but over here we have a PCM CIA slot here that allowed you to put in expansion cards. So if your machine didn't have a particular port that you wanted to expand, this allowed you to put various size cards in here to, say, external wireless, external network card, because this doesn't have it. I didn't see a modem in this machine, so if you want to dial up, you could also have it through here as well. So that gave you a lot of expansion capabilities. Here we have a port, but unfortunately there's a screw in it, and the screw usually implies that this is where the hard disk would be. Now, that said, when I say unfortunate, just because, you can't just open it up unless you remove the screw, but, having a removable hard disk or a user accessible hard disk was very common for Dells and very common for business type PCs, just because of easily being able to go on the fly. More of the consumer market didn't allow that just because they didn't want the end users to have access to the hard disk. We have, it looks like a Kensington lock type area here, but I'm seeing one back here as well. So I'm not sure if you have the ability to have two, but again, handy to have. And then over here we have what looks like, again, another kind of speaker port on the side here, left side. Okay, along the back of the machine, we have additional information, additional stuff here. So I'll flip it around just so, we can get a good look of, the writing and the way it should be. So this machine here, it says Microsoft Windows NT Workstation 4, 1 to 2 CPU is the operating system that it states here. Now, interesting, it did come with that license. We'll talk about that in a moment. So over here, we have what looks like two latches on the bottom of the machine. So on this side, we push the latch open, yeah, and then we have the battery. Now here we are, we have a Dell battery module to allow you to put the battery in here. And my understanding is you can still get these batteries for these machines from various websites, but very handy to be able to swap out very quickly if required. And over here, now there's that modular type bay I was talking about. This is the optical drive. So you'd open this up as well, slide that out, and then you would have access to your Dell 24-speed CD-ROM module. And they call it a module because that's exactly what it is. By removing that, I now have the ability to pop in either additional charging. You can see the charging port down inside here, so I have another battery in there if I wanted, or they also came in additional floppy modules. So at the time, floppy disks were still being used, so you'd have the ability to change it out for a floppy disk module. So I'm going to go ahead and just pop that back in just so we have it in the bay properly, so we don't forget to put it back in for later. Okay, and we have various screws along the bottom here. They have different indicators, P, K, things like that. This is for your palm rest, these 5 screws up here, and they have K for keyboard. Dell made their systems very, very serviceable, which is nice to have. So again, just something about Dell and their machines. I'm a big Lenovo fan, but Dells of this era were definitely nice to see. So along the back here, we also have what looks like a removable door here. Yeah, there we go. So again, user accessibility. Just like that, I'm able to upgrade the memory in this computer. And it looks like we already have a stick of RAM that's in here and one that is not. It looks like to be PC 100 memory. I'm not exactly sure the memory. I think it's 128 megabytes of RAM that's installed in this machine. And again, being able to expand it again if you needed to. So really, really nice to see there is in terms of expandability. Okay, let's look up and how just nice how easy that just went back in there. Okay, let's flip this over and look at the inside condition of this machine. And here we are with a slightly different camera angle so we can get the whole system in the shot here. So along the top there, we have the Dell Latitude moniker, the model information. We have the latch up there, and we have some rubber kind of mounts along the top there just to kind of cushion when the lid or the screen comes down. But looking at the condition of the screen, it looks to be good so far. And that's one of the challenges with systems this age, being 23 years old, is you worry about the degradation of the LCD panel, and or did someone put something along the top of it to potentially crush or crack the LCD panel itself. It's just good to see in this good of condition. And then sure enough, we have our lights as I indicated earlier. So we have a power, hard disk, and charging LEDs there. We have a couple more little kind of plugs here that would hide additional screws to help remove either the bezel, the panel, or the actual screen from the machine itself. We have a power button, big chunky power button over here for good old Dell. A nice keyboard. The Dells of this era, I found the keyboards quite nice to use. I have some older Dells from the late 90s. This is one of my newer Dells in terms of like my first Dell from 2000, I should say. And yeah, it's really, really nice keyboard. I'm still very pro Lenovo or IBM keyboards, but this is definitely takes a second seat for sure. And then we also have our track point here as well as a missing, by the looks of things, left and right mouse click. And then you can see how you would use it like this. Now, I'm not one that really ever use that. I always use a trackpad or the external mouse if I absolutely needed to use that functionality. But in this particular case, that doesn't concern me. However, one thing I'm noticing when I look inside here is you can see inside here there's a bit of green forming on the board, and it looks like it looks like almost like battery leakage, and I'm going to talk about that in just a moment. So here as well, we have our trackpad, as I mentioned, with left and right mouse buttons, and then very comfortable palm rest to, rest your hands on and work away. Now I'll go back to the battery for a moment. So I did research, when I saw that, I just kind of researched quickly via Google search. I found the manual for this. And these batteries, the CMOS batteries that are in these machines, are a bunch of cells that are kind of taped together with a lead that connects into what looks like to be that kind of connector there. And I believe it resides just underneath here, underneath the palm rest. And so I'm going to be taking this apart, not in this video, but I'm going to take this apart either in a future video or as soon as I can, just to stop any sort of potential damage from forming. But essentially, it's kind of like the IBM, the older IBM. I think it was a 380XD or another machine I took apart that has that kind of grouping of cells together. And unfortunately, it looks like it's starting to leak, to corrode some of this. It is not too bad. It is something that we can certainly clean up fairly easily, but now's the time. You don't want that to get any further than that. Okay, so we have on the front here, we have the Intel Pentium 3 sticker here, which is great. And we also have the design for Microsoft Windows 2000 Professional, Windows NT Workstation 4, which is what this machine came with, and Windows 98. Interesting that, that Windows NT 4 is what came with this machine, considering we had Windows 98 and Windows 2000 Professional available at the time. And yeah, just interesting to see that would have been chosen for this particular build. It must have been, again, for the particular business that it was for, or whatever environment it was for. That's what was tried, tested, and true at the time, and they chose to utilize that. Okay, I did turn this machine on. I was able to get into an operating system. We do have Windows XP Professional installed on this computer. We're going to do the same thing, except the operating system that's on here is chock full of business proprietary information. It's not even enough for me to be able to turn it on and show it on camera because there's just so much on the desktop that to edit it out, you just have a blank screen anyway. So I'm not going to do that today. I'm just going to work on getting this machine up and running properly. But the first thing I am going to do, though, is re-zoom in on the screen here. We're going to turn it on and we're going to look into the system setup itself. Okay, here we are with the machine all plugged in and turning it on. I'm going to hit F2 for the setup, just because it won't complain about the battery because I have had it turned on already. Okay, so there is our Dell setup screen, or Dell, I guess, kind of CMOS setup. So we have a mobile Pentium 3 750/600 megahertz CPU. I believe this is the 750 megahertz model. Yeah, there we go. Currently running at 750 megahertz with an L2 cache of 256 kilobytes, as well as system memory of 128 megabytes. So that was 128 megabytes of RAM that we saw on the machine. It looks like it has dedicated video memory of 8 megabytes. It's an ATI M1 video card that's in here. And any sort of dedicated graphics is amazing because it doesn't take away from the system memory and operates on its own essential there. So it's really, really good. Audio controller, we have ESS Maestro 3 is what we have. Our primary hard disk is a 20 gigabyte hard disk with no drive A or B, so we have no floppy drives installed. And then we do have the CD-ROM installed. So to diskette reconfig anytime is selected. I think this kind of means if you were to switch into a modular type bay that you can do that on the fly, like a hot type swap situation. So again, the modular bay being a CD-ROM. We have some additional information here for our service tag information. So right now the machine is considering itself that it is December 1st of 2000. Well, unfortunately, it's 23 years out of date at the time, but you can see that it just kind of resets that time because the CMOS battery that is in this machine, from what I evidence, shows it's leaking and is obviously not working. Okay, so we'll hit Alt P to kind of go to the next page. So our first boot device, so is our configuration. We have our diskette drive, then internal hard drive, then our CD, basically our optical drive. Our boot post is set to minimal, so just faster to be able to boot up instead of going through all the different checks. And our boot speed is 750 megahertz, and the serial number is disabled just for security. And then for dock configuration, it's currently detecting it as undocked, and then docking Ethernet's enabled. So it allows the pass-through for the Ethernet from the docking station, and the IRQ obviously optimized based on what IRQs it will assign the various hardware and what have you. So really nice to see that. Now hit Alt P again. So under our basic device configuration, we have just our ports and some additional information. So we have our serial port in the back is COM1. The infrared data port is currently disabled. Parallel port is ECP at full duplex, but you can change this if you wanted to change it to based on what kind of data and how you want your data being sent through that cable. Click volumes all the way up. Keyboard click is currently disabled, so that's kind of irrelevant. Our numlock key is disabled. Scroll lock is external hotkey, and then our USB legacy is enabled, which is good in case you want to boot this up with an external USB device. Okay, we'll hit Alt P again. And then here's our batteries. So, I mean, again, it's not detecting a battery is installed. Now, as I'm facing the machine, it's considering the right side. The right battery is the modular drive, and the left side it is detecting. It tells me it's being charged. I let this sit forever and it didn't charge at all. So we know that there's no life left in that battery. And then under our power management sort of thing is our battery and AC. So what does the machine behavior act like while it's plugged in versus while it's on battery? And so all those settings are enabled. So if you're having some issues when it comes to power, standby, etc., you just go in here and make an adjustment to be able to make it for troubleshooting and things like that. So I generally leave them to defaults until it starts to annoy me in some form, and then I'll come in here and change it, or just let Windows manage the settings for me. Alt P again. So this is the system security. So in the event that your primary password, admin password, and then hard disk drive password itself, they're all disabled, which is great, specifically getting a machine like this. Now, even with from what I read in the manual, with the CMOS battery damaged or not working, it can still maintain this stuff. You have to go in, I think it hard codes this setting into a chip on the board, into a ROM chip. So you have to go in and jump to areas on the board to be able to bypass this in the event that you do lose your password. So happy to see that it's disabled, saves me a bunch of work. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is get the CD put in, and we'll start the Windows XP setup. Okay, so I have the disk in the drive. We're going to power up the machine, and it should detect the CD. It'll allow me to start installing Windows XP. And, for a machine of 2000, especially being a business class PC, I'm really impressed that it has 128 megs of RAM, Pentium 3 750, and the ability to upgrade the memory if required. And then having a 24-speed CD-ROM drive to boot is pretty darn good, and dedicated graphics. Now, the graphics card may not be high-end fancy, but I have already struggled with some of these older machines having the shared graphics, and they tended to be quite challenging when it came to some of the games I wanted to run or different things like that. So just nice to see that in this machine. So far so good. All right. Everyone has seen the Windows XP setup before. I'm going to go through this whole process right now and get this whole operating system installed. And here we are back to the desktop of Windows XP installed, and it's looking pretty darn good for what it is, I would say. The screen on this is a 14-inch screen. I forgot to mention that when we were first kind of going over the whole computer. And currently the resolution, it looks like it did find a lot of the drivers just because it was designed for earlier versions of Windows. So it is set to the 1024 by 768 on the ATI Rage Mobility Dell video card at 32-bit color currently. Let's go into the control panel real quickly here just to see what we have in terms of hardware and see what's been installed and what might need to be installed. I anticipate most of the drivers were installed because of it being a newer operating system. It gives you that ability with all the service packs installed and all the drivers. Okay, click on hardware here and we'll click on device manager just to see what we have in this system. So everything looks like it has been installed. That took all the fun out of it. I had Snappy Driver installer all ready to go just in case. Okay, under batteries, I mean, obviously we have the batteries installed. There's not much there. Computer's pretty standard stuff. Disk drives is our, looks like a Seagate that's installed there, our 20 gig drive. Display adapters, we talked about that earlier. I believe it's an AGP2X 3D accelerated ATI Rage running with the 8 megabytes. I believe that is what it is. The DVD or optical drive, I should say, is the Samsung CD-ROM. That's the 24-speed modular drive that we took out of the system earlier. Floppy disk controllers, IDE controllers, keyboards, mice, pretty standard stuff. PCM-CIA adapters, install the drivers for that. Our CPU is the Pentium 3 750, which we saw earlier. And then we also have all the audio stuff installed as we heard as the system booted up, and that's the the ESS Maestro 3 PCI. So this would have been the top of the line of this particular model at the time. And of course, we also had the USB. And I also read online as well that this system would have been around $3,500 US at the time, which was quite expensive for this particular model in 2000. And of course, I also read online that this computer did lose out to Lenovo in terms of reviews. The T21, I believe it was, or the T20. Okay, so that's all installed. So yeah, I mean, overall, it's pretty snappy now. The computer seems to be working fairly quickly here. So I'm just going to do a quick reboot of the computer just because sometimes when, after you do a fresh install like this, I just like to do one more restart just to make sure that the everything's kind of installed and where it should be. Speakers are kind of tinny. I expect that though from a business type laptop, but nice just the same. Okay, let the computer restart here and we'll be right back. Okay, so we have the computer all restarted here, and yeah, it's again really quick. I'm impressed at how well Windows XP is running on this machine. I realize Windows 2000, Windows XP were created in the same year, and I have a lot of the same backend. But it's nice to it's just nice to see Windows XP Professional running on this Pentium 3. Okay, let's play a couple games just to see if how the system works with gaming.
Prisoner A, over 9,
And here we are. I mean, overall, I'm very impressed with this machine. For $20, I think it's pretty darn cool. Having Windows XP Professional running on this Pentium 3 750 with 128 megs of RAM and an 8 megabyte AGP 2X dedicated video card with 3D acceleration definitely makes a big difference in this, being able to use this machine for some retro gaming. And, you know, we proved that with Quake 3 Arena. We were able to get that going pretty well, even though I played terribly. But that's totally fine because, again, for $20, I'm very impressed with this machine. And, you know, it definitely unlocks the doors to be able to do many different things with this, you know, upgrading the hard disk that's in this 20 gig to flash memory, having an extra memory, which is expandable to 256 megabytes of memory would make a big difference in this machine. Also, gives me a little bit of pause with that battery leakage in here, so we're gonna have to take that apart, get that all kind of neutralized and get that cleaned up and the battery replaced. And yeah, and this machine will get a bunch of new life back into it. So again, my final say on this is that $20 well spent. Very happy with this machine. That said, if you liked today's video, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. 65% of our viewers are not subscribed, so really helps the channel grow if you hit that subscribe button, helps the YouTube algorithm and all that stuff. Hit the notification button, change it to all. You'll be notified of new content such as this. Leave a comment down below. Let me know, did you own a Dell Latitude CPx? Did you use it for business or was it used for personal use? Really like to hear all the comments about this particular machine, your experiences down below. I respond to absolutely every comment. Always making new content. We'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.